Do we remember the 5 elements of a strong small group? Now, Tanner knows them. Does anybody else know them? Let's throw some out. Being devoted to. Awesome. Today we're going to be taking a good look at service. And that's just one of, I think they're all my favorites, so that's tough to say. But this one can be a lot of fun. One of the problems we find as Christians is we can fall in the mystic trap. Last week I talked about falling into the Martha trap. This is the ditch on the other side of the road. There are many people, and they frustrate me because I am a Martha at heart, who believe that prayer is a substitute for action. And they don't actually have to do anything at all. They can just sort of pray away, and that's the end of things. The epistle that James wrote kind of hammers on this. That if you see somebody, who's in need, and you just say, be well, what good does that do? Faith without works is dead. And prayer without action, prayer without activity. It's great that you're talking to God, but one of the things we should do if we're talking to God is listen to God. And one of the things God has told us is to do stuff. He's given us a definite commission that we're supposed to live an active Christian life. The Christian life is supposed to be one of consequence. And the mystic trap isn't just a prayer trap, but it can be an intellectual trap as well. That I have known people who can really theologically geek out, and they know their Bible inside and out, and they like to argue and they like to debate, but they don't actually do anything. They don't accomplish anything. And this is a challenge that a lot of people in church have. I know we just had a discussion here in this church where we had a small number of people who've been going to this church for many, many years. They're not involved in doing anything, but they're upset that they don't feel really weighted on hand and foot. Now, it's probably good that I wasn't talking to them. We'll send somebody nicer to them like Pastor Matt, because I would challenge them to put their big boy pants on. Because if you've been a Christian for a few decades, then step up to the plate. But the trap of inactivity can infect us in many, many different ways. And the focus on service helps us get outside of that trap. When we actually serve God, we actually do something, that will strengthen all the other elements of the study as well. Our study of the Word is going to be a lot more relevant with service. One of the things that Jesus said, and we learn it in Sunday school as a song, except the song leaves out a really important bit of the story. We learned the song, the wise man built his house upon the rock, and the foolish man built his house upon the sand, and when the rains come tumbling down. So we know that song, but we don't know the context. And the context is the man who hears my words and puts it into practice is like a man who builds his house on the rock. A man who hears my words and doesn't put it into practice is a man who builds his house on the sand. So our understanding of the Word, what we get out of it, is going to be so much more relevant when we're actually doing what it says. Our relationships are going to be built through service. They're built through talking, but relationships are also built through walking. When we get to work together side by side, and I'm sure even here in our internship program, the opportunities you've had to work with each other on media projects, work with each other on young adult projects, those are all relationship building activities. And relationships are super important in a small group, and those are going to be built even stronger through acts of service. Our prayers are going to be far more focused through acts of service. We talked about last week how our prayers can be superficial grocery lists and kind of selfish grocery lists. A challenge, I think it was Pastor Kelly had made this, was if all your prayers were answered today, would anybody else's life be changed or just yours? Well, when we serve, that gets us outsider focused and not just focused on ourselves. And that will help our prayers. Evangelism is often facilitated through service. That we get evangelism opportunities through service. We get evangelism credibility through service. Evangelism is pretty darn weak when we say, oh, you know what, Jesus changed our lives. Well, in what way? Well, in no way that I could possibly demonstrate. Okay, that's weak sauce. Service is a powerful tool. I remember a few years ago, we saw a guy come to the Lord who had been a crack addict for 25 years. And remarkable change. And I remember being at an event, and he was off, and somebody else was talking to him. They come up to him, and they had some kind of problem, something was on their heart. And he was listening to them, and he reached out and put his hand on their shoulder, was encouraging them. And I was standing with his sister, and we were probably about 25 feet away. And she looked over and says, I don't know who that man is. Says, my brother never gave a flying rat's behind about anybody in his entire life. I don't know who that is. All right. That simple act of service, of him listening to somebody else, reaching out, touching, and encouraging them, that did more in his sister's eyes than any yak, Jesus, Bible would have done. So evangelism is facilitated through service. Discipleship. This is a bit of a no-brainer, but it's best done by learning by doing. Years ago, I used to be a welder. And if I was going to teach you how to weld, first we'd talk about welding. Then I'd say, come watch me weld. Then I would hand the welding gun to you, and I'd look over your shoulder and a little faster, a little slower, side to side. And then I would say, teach somebody else. Okay? Learning by doing. And that's how Jesus discipled the disciples. He talked to them, invited them to come and watch, then come and join, and then go and do. You don't learn how to swim by reading a book. Same with discipleship. Reading about it is not the same thing as doing it. And the best way to learn is by doing it. And as far as crisis management is concerned in a small group, service is crisis management. That's how you manage the crisis, is through service. Now, it's not always physical service, but sometimes it is. Somebody in your group might be sick, you might bring them a meal. Somebody in your group might be out of a job, and you might help them out. But it can also be emotional service. Someone's really depressed, and you take them out. Shoot them with paintballs. There's a lot of things that you can do. But service is at the heart of crisis management, which is a powerful, powerful way to demonstrate your love. So how do we do service? Well, I'm going to show you several ways. One is individual service. And individual service inside the church. So this is something where what you will do is, as a group leader, you will encourage your group members to get involved, to get plugged in. And even though this isn't a team thing, it's going to make a big difference in the growth of your group members. Now, to do this, you might want to help them discover their spiritual gifts. Now, Pastor Kelly is teaching the spiritual gifts class. There are different ways of doing this, but give them encouragement about those kinds of things. It's also good to help people discover their calling. Now, this is going to be worth writing down. When I have the Discover Your Calling conversation with people, I walk them through a 5-step process. Step number 1 is, what are you passionate about? One of the things the Bible talks about is, as we grow closer to God, God will give us new passions in our heart. Sometimes we think when the Bible talks about God giving us desires of our heart, he thinks, that God's going to give us a new pony or something like that. No, God will actually give us desires themselves, not the things we desire, but God will give us new desires in our heart. And that desire, it might be, you might have a passion for children, or a passion for music, or a passion for seniors, or a passion for the sick, or a passion for Africa, it could be any number of things. But pay attention to the passions God has already given you. Number 2 is, chances are, if God has given you a passion, he's given you a gift along with it. That you have some natural gifts and talents in that area. That isn't always true. So we have some people who are passionate about singing, but need to join the solo choir of the shower, and that's where they should be singing to God every morning. That's probably going to be more of a private discipline than a public one. But if God has given you a real passion, and if this is going to be your calling, he will also give you gifts that back that up. I have seen once an exception to this. Brilliant God exception. Young man really felt called to be a pastor. Like, that was the burning desire on his heart. I need to pastor a church. The problem is he had a very, very severe problem with stuttering. He could not utter a single sentence that you could have a hope of understanding. And he went all the way through seminary, convinced that this was God's calling, yet demonstrating absolutely no ability in this regards. And he was kind of hoping that God was going to miraculously heal him or something like that, because he was so certain of that calling. Well, after graduation, he ended up serving the church. And it's absolutely true that no one in his church ever hears him misspeak a single thing. They understand him with perfect clarity. There's no stuttering whatsoever. Did God heal him? No, God did not heal him. But he pastors a church for the deaf. So, it worked out. But as a general rule of thumb, that being, divine exceptions, if God has called you something, given you a passion, chances are he's given you giftings that back that up. Third thing I walk people through is the affirmation of people you know and trust. We've all seen the first few weeks of American Idol, where we have people who go up on stage who sincerely believe that they can sing. And it's Marietta. They're terrible. Terrible. And I think behind all those people are some real lousy friends. What do wise people in your life say? Do they recognize in you these talents and gifts? If you're getting affirmation from those around you, and not just sort of the chump friends who will agree with whatever you say, but people who actually, with wisdom, will speak in your life, are they affirming these passions and these gifts? If so, that means something. The fourth thing is your experience. Quite frankly, God hasn't been waiting for you to finally clue into your calling. He doesn't wait. He goes right on ahead. And God has already been giving you experiences and has already been equipping you to fulfill your calling. So when you look back at your life, and sometimes you need to look back with a little bit of creativity. You might be managing production line at McDonald's, but you know what? That can be preparation for the ministry because you may have been coaching people, you may have been encouraging people, you may have been loving people, helping people deal with their stress. So God can use a lot of different kinds of experiences to build us and shape us. But if you look at your experiences, I think about just my own life. It took me a long time to see this, but when I was a little kid, I used to put together neighborhood sports leagues. Because, I like to play ball hockey, and there's another group of boys on that street, another group of boys on that street. Why don't we just put together a schedule and have team names and round robin tournament? And I did that with football, and I did that with ball hockey, and did that with a little baseball team, and made at home and away games and stuff like that. Now, at the time, not in a million years that I have imagined I ever had leadership gifts. And I just didn't think anything of it. Later, I realized, you know what? God was using those experiences to help me be a leader. Look at your past, and if you see your experiences lining up with all these other elements, that means something. And then the fifth thing to help people understand their calling is opportunities. If all of these things are lining up, then you will get one of two opportunities. You'll have an opportunity for further training, or you'll have an opportunity to get started. And it's just open your eyes. What do you see? Now, for individual service inside the church, particularly in a church of our size, boy, there are lots and lots and lots of diverse opportunities. You like gardening? We got gardening opportunities. You like stage design? We got stage design opportunities. You really like to decorate bathrooms? We can hook you up. Whether it's kids, babies, doesn't matter. There's lots of opportunities. But as small group leaders, walk people through this process to help them discover. Because a lot of times people don't know where they possibly even start getting involved in anything. Help people discover their talents. We're going to go through a little exercise. And I think it's going to be cool. If all of you could get out a blank piece of paper. Does anybody have a spare pen?
Pen?
Or pencil?
I have both.
Pen would be good. And could I get a spare blank piece of paper as well? So, what you're going to do with your blank piece of paper is you are going to write your name at the top of it. All right. I want you to hand your blank piece of paper to the person on your left. And then, with whoever's name is on the paper you have, write down some kind of strength or quality about them that you admire. I have one of these that we did 20 years ago, and I've kept it. this is a little exercise that you can do with your small group. Probably better once you've gotten to know each other a little bit more. But this is just a way of seeing how others can affirm you and encourage you. And you can be a little bit more specific or broad depending on what your plan is. But how'd you guys feel when you read your paper? Yeah, it's kind of neat. To be able to bless others and recognize goodness in them, and then just to see what people recognize in you. It's kind of it's a neat process. But that's just one of the tools that you can use, and I don't know how we're going to edit this for the video course. I have to cut a little bit out. But it's just a tool that you can use where people can get a chance to affirm one another and feel affirmed. And you can do it on what are the strengths you recognize in somebody, what are the talents you recognize in somebody, what are the qualities that you recognize in other people. And sometimes people will say things that are surprising. Sometimes they'll say things that you didn't know about yourself. And I've always found that to be particularly cool. I got a little comment on Facebook from some guy I hadn't talked to in 30 years, maybe. This guy I knew from junior high. And when I was in junior high, I was painfully shy. And didn't really have any friends. I mean, I had a friend in grade above me and a friend in grade beneath me, but didn't really have any friends my own age. And my junior high had 800 kids in it. And that was a tough place to have any friends. And so, I was a shy little insecure wallflower. And didn't look at as like the best years of my life, probably the worst years of my life. Everybody was more mature than me. Everybody could cue me before I did. It wasn't a good time. But this guy got in contact with me on Facebook, and we chatted a little bit. And he said, I remember you from junior high. You were really, really funny and very smart. And I'm like, I was nothing but a C or D student in junior high, and I didn't think I even spoke. But part of my problem with junior high that I realize now with an adult mind is that my perception of reality and reality were two different things. And even though I felt very badly about myself, I didn't know that that's not the way others perceive me. And so, that was kind of cool. But that can happen to anybody of any age, is that you can have false impressions of yourself, that you don't recognize different gifts that you have. Maybe you don't recognize the bravery you have, or how encouraging you are, what kind of difference you make. And that simple little exercise that we went through can really, really help that. It's just a cool little thing. But help people discover their talents. Also, teach people the whys behind service. And that can be done through the normal Bible study by just choosing passages that instruct us on why we should serve, on why we should make a difference, on why faith without works is dead. That we are supposed to live the Christian life in a way that is consequential and makes a difference. So talk up service in your group. Another thing you can do, and this is a powerful thing to do, is share serving stories. And you could even do that during your sort of the icebreaker phase of the evening. Of Did you get a chance to serve or volunteer at all this week? What happened? And we do, when we serve and volunteer, we see cool things happen. If we remember those and we share those, that just encourages us in lots of little ways. Another thing we can do with individual service is encourage service outside of the church. Now, this is maybe a little bit more of a controversial idea, and it's not something you often hear out of the mouth of a pastor, because churches are always in want of more volunteers, and why would I want anybody to volunteer outside of the church when we still need volunteers inside of the church? Good question. But we should always be helping people connect their faith with their passions. And we should also be encouraging our people to engage with the world. That living a life of consequence isn't just living a life of consequence when you're at this location in this building with Christians. That we are supposed to live a life of consequence all week long in everything that we do. We should be salt and light and making a difference. Now, examples of things that we can encourage people to get involved in: sports. That's playing sports. That's coaching sports. Those are great things. There are kids clubs, scouts, dance. There's a whole bunch of different things. Computer clubs. A lot of things you can do with children. You can get involved with politics. Now, a lot of churches avoid talking about politics. I'm of the firm belief that whatever political party you identify with, that political party will be a better party with some Christian perspective in it. I think the NDP is a better socialist party when it has a Christian conscience. I think that the Conservatives is a better capitalist party when it has a Christian conscience. And I don't care what country you're from or what political parties there are, whether you're left-wing, right-wing, center, whatever your views, a Christian perspective is always going to make those views better and make that system better. Activism. Maybe you have a real passion for the environment. You know what? God created the environment. It's okay to have a passion for the environment. Maybe it's a passion for animal rights. You know what? That's cool too. Maybe it's a passion for the homeless. Maybe it's a passion for good architecture or parks or, I don't know, whatever passion God has laid on your heart, feel free to get involved in that. Hospitals need volunteers all the time. The SPCA, Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, they need volunteers all the time. There's different ways that you can volunteer with the police, to help the police, to help them deal with victims of crime. There's ways that you can volunteer at schools. There's just so many ways. And even when there's going to be sort of the Canada Summer Games and where our city gets to host it or whatever, you know what? They need hundreds of volunteers. Different charities, whether it's heart and stroke or lung or breast cancer or ALS or whatever it is, you know what? There's lots of opportunities we have to make a difference in the world and ways that are going to line up with our passions. I wouldn't strongly encourage somebody to get involved with something that doesn't align with their passions. So, like, if you hate animals, like, don't do the SPCA. You're probably not going to be a blessing there. But those are the kinds of things that encourage people to get off the couch, cancel their cable subscription, and live a life that makes a difference that matters. Live a life where they get to interact with people and interact with people outside of the church. And make sure they understand the spiritual why enough to communicate it. What is really, really powerful is when you have a Christian who's part of an environmentalist group. And that Christian will have the opportunity of saying, well, I mean, why am I here? Why do I believe in protecting the environment? I thought Christians hated the environment. Or Christians say, you know what? No, God created the environment. And not only did he create the environment, but if you read Genesis, our job on planet Earth is to take care of the planet. We're supposed to be gardeners and take care of the animals. That's why we were created. It's sort of like, when dad lends you the car. Yeah, you're given control of the car, but it's not in order to trash it. Same thing. The Bible is consistent about how God cares about the environment. There's laws in the Bible about the cruelty to animals. God makes it clear that all the animals, all the plants are his, that they're just not ours to abuse, they're ours to take care of. The Bible even, remember the story of Noah? God didn't save just the humans. Paul talks about how all of creation groans under the weight of our sin, and all of creation looks forward to our redemption because it will share in our redemption. And if you look in the book of Revelation, that's exactly what you see, is redemption of not just humans, but the redemption of all of creation. So being able to understand why you do these things and explain it to others, that's powerful. Why am I coaching hockey? Because I want to win and beat the other team. No, I coach hockey because I believe I can teach leadership. I can teach diligence. I can help these boys grow up to be fine men. Whatever it is, get in touch with the spiritual why of what you're doing. And you are going to make the world a better place, and you're going to be able to connect with people in a real meaningful way outside of the church. The gospel is not meant to be a secret, and the Christian life is not supposed to be a secret. We're supposed to be a city on a hill and a light that people see. And individual service outside of the church is an excellent way of doing that. There's also group service inside the church. Doing things together as a group is also a super powerful thing to do. The first step of that is find out what are your group's passions. What are the things that, you get to the group, hey, why don't we do something? Sometimes they call it a Micah 6:8 project. Why don't we do something that serves others? Well, find out something that you're passionate about. If you guys your group is made of people who are maybe a little more dainty and delicate, maybe you shouldn't choose, hey, let's go wash the sores of lepers. That may not work for your group. You got a group full of nurses, and those people I found to have some sort of morbid interest in those kinds of things. Hey, have at her. Whatever you're passionate about, whether it's for children, whether it might be for the homeless, it might not be for the homeless. One of the mistakes I've heard, I was talking to a church in Massachusetts, where they'd heard of a church in Illinois that started offering free counseling services. And a lot of their members were involved in offering free counseling services to the community. Now, that church in Illinois had a lot of people in that church that had a counseling background. But this church in Massachusetts had nobody with a counseling background or interest or passion. But, hey, that was a good idea that worked in Illinois. Why don't we do that too? No, do what you're passionate about. If God hasn't gifted you in counseling, having a bunch of people who hate counseling try to be counselors because they want to copy a church that did something in Illinois, that's not going to work. Find out what your group is passionate about. And then plan a group project within the church. We had, in my last church, we had a small group of newlyweds. And it might have been 5 couples, so not a big group. But they had encountered the Love and Respect course, and they thought it was awesome, and they decided to run a weekend church-wide seminar. And so that small group did all the publicity, they ordered all the books, they made all the arrangements. 200 people showed up to that seminar. That small group did all the food, all the refreshments, arranged childcare. They put together a pretty big deal. And yeah, there were well over 100 couples who were profoundly affected by that Friday night and Saturday course that they put on. And that was just a group of 20-somethings. And they were able to do something that made an impact on the whole church. and touch hundreds of lives. And when you include the children of those marriages, and yeah, they did amazing things. Now, you don't necessarily have to do that specifically. There's lots of different things that you can do. But plan a group project, something that aligns up with your passions. Something that I would encourage is this principle of do for one what you wish you could do for all. Most churches do the opposite of this. If we can't do it for everybody, we won't do it for anybody. That's just leads you into inactivity. Yeah, we can't be fair. We can't do something for everybody, but we can bless some. So if your group are filled with handymen and you like hammers and paint and stuff, well, you know what? You can go to some senior's house and as a group, hey, you know what? We're going to rebuild her fence. No, you don't have enough time to rebuild the fences of every single person in the church. So there might be some, well, that's not fair. You didn't rebuild my house or my fence. Okay, don't worry about that stuff. Do for one what you wish you could do for all. So you can do a group project where you just bless a senior or two or three. Or there might be a specific family that's on your hearts. Bless them. Hold a baby shower for them or different things. But don't worry about not being able to do it for everybody. That isn't reasonable. Short-term projects are great for growth and experience. There are a lot of people who've never served in any capacity at all, ever. And a short-term project is perfect for them to get their feet wet, to get them to grow, to experience those kinds of things. And doing that as a group is a great way of doing that. And without the experience, there's a lot of people, they don't know what they're passionate about. They don't know what they're good at. They just need a diverse experience. Our whole internship program, particularly for your first year, has been designed to get you experience in a broad range of areas. Because we're not assuming that we know everything there is to know, or you might be able to discover something that you're good at that you didn't know, that you hadn't had the opportunity to do before. And so we want to give people very broad experiences in an internship program, but also in a small group. The more we can broaden people's experience, the better we can hook them up with their passions and help them even discover passions they didn't even know they had. Long-term group projects, if you want to do that, this is better for known gifts and passions. Okay, you know what? Our group's been around a while enough. We're mature enough. We know we love doing this. That's what we're going to do. So we got a group where the vast majority of them volunteer at the coffee shop. And so we've got kind of a coffee shop small group. We don't have the ushers get together and form a group, but that wouldn't be a bad idea either. Or have a group take over an area church. You know what? There's this program over here that isn't running well. Why don't we as a group take this on? But a long-term group service project, yeah, that shouldn't be so experimental. Because if you guys commit to something long-term that you hate, that's going to suck. And group service outside the church. Once again, discover your group's passions. What is it that you guys would like to do? Plan something outside of the church. And these can be some of the most fun. One way of doing this is with other Christian organizations. So it can be with the Salvation Army, or Streets Alive, or the Mustard Seed, or InterVarsity, or Campus Crusade. And there's lots of other Christian organizations you can be involved with. There's organizations that support unwed mothers. And whatever lines up with your passion. There's counseling agencies. Yeah, there's tons and tons and tons of ways that you can get involved. And some of them aren't even in our city. And those are super cool too. Use this as an opportunity to go on a road trip. So the mustard seed in Calgary is a good thing. I know, and I can't remember the name of the mission. It's a Sunday school mission in New York City. But wouldn't that be cool as a group to drive to New York City and get involved in some kind of ministry there? That'd be awesome. Our church and denomination, we have an orphanage in Ensenada, Mexico. And I'd suggest during reading week because the weather sucks here. But, wouldn't it be cool as a group to go to Mexico together? That would be awesome to do. Now, short-term mission projects, that takes at least months of planning. And takes some commitment. It'll take, a little bit of money. But a lot of your group were planning on having some kind of a vacation anyways. You might have 4 weeks of vacation. Use a week and a half to do something that's noble and will build memories that will last a lifetime. And your group will grow spiritually and relationally by incredible amounts on something like this. And also look for secular opportunities. There are other organizations, good organizations, the SPCA, whatever, that your group can get involved in as well. The benefit of these secular opportunities is that you get in more and closer relational contact to people who are outside of our church circle. Maybe you guys want to do something for Big Brothers or the Interfaith Food Bank, or there's lots of different things to do. And it's cool to get together a group and even brainstorm through some of these things. Wouldn't it be cool to try out? Wouldn't it be cool to do? I've got a cousin in Seattle who does this. Wouldn't it be cool if we made a trip? Whatever it is, getting involved in outside group activities is a great experience for a small group. And then lastly, group service to each other is important. And this is done by a number of ways. One is discovering your group's gifts. And this is individual gifts. It's good to know that Sam knows how to fix a car. Doug knows how to fix a fence. Lisa's an accountant. She knows how to set up a budget. To know what your different gifts of whatever the people are in your group are, just to sort of know what are the things that you guys are good at. And then discover your group's needs. If Lisa's an accountant and really, really good at setting up a budget and explaining how to get out of debt, and Dave and Lisa are up to their eyeballs in debt, don't have a clue, well, they use the same name twice. I can't remember. But anyways, the hazard of randomly making up names on the fly. But then you can help each other. When you know the group's gifts and you know the group's needs, you can start pairing up. And you can respond to a crisis. One of the greatest strengths of having small groups is crisis management, because the Bible makes it pretty clear that crisis is coming. I already talked about, the wise man building his house upon the rock. What Jesus said after that was not if the rain comes tumbling down, it's when it comes down and the floods rise up. Like the rain is coming, the flood is coming. There will be death, there will be divorce, there will be tragedy, there will be job loss, there will be sickness. Like stuff happens. There will be conflict. But when it happens, if you've got a group that's willing to meet each other's needs, to serve each other, that makes a big difference. In crisis, again, it's not always necessarily about building somebody a fence. It can just be even an emotional crisis. That a friend who's good enough to take you out, and a friend who's enough of a godly jerk to take you out even when you tell them, no, I don't feel like going out. My wife has a friend when we used to live in Toronto. if Tracy was really not feeling well, and she struggled with postpartum depression after the birth of our second child. And yeah, she just found it so hard to get out of bed. And she had this friend, Natasha, who would drive 45 minutes across the city and say, okay, we're going out for a girls' night. No, I don't know. I'm coming over. No, don't come over. I'm coming over. I'm still in bed. I'm coming over. Well, I'm going to be in bed when you get here. Yeah, we'll see. And Natasha would come over, and she'd just march right up into our house, and she'd grab Tracy's hand, pull her right out of that bed, and say, open up the closet. I think you should wear this. And would march her right out to the movie theater. And that did Tracy a world of good. Having a friend who loved her enough to be a jerk enough to take care. Serving each other, that's so important. It's one of the reasons Jesus said, they will know you are Christians by your love. Okay, what is the demonstration that this is legit, that this is for real? It's found right here. Any questions? All right. Well, I hope you guys have an opportunity with whatever groups you leave for. I forgot one thing, dang. Deputize a service champion. Chances are that at least one person in your group really has a passion for activism. Deputize them. Give them the job of being the team lead for service projects. Because it may not be you. You might be, really theologically minded, and that's what you want to focus on, and that's what really fires your jets. And yeah, you're kind of okay with service. The group will get lopsided and unbalanced if it's just up to you. Deputize a champion to make sure that this isn't lost.